Hey everyone, it's Sive Morten from ForexPeaceArmy.com back with our usual Bitcoin update. Last time when we discussed Bitcoin, the situation was quite complicated because, as you know, Bitcoin and its dynamics depend heavily on market liquidity. At the moment, the problem is that this week, and in fact throughout this month, the US Treasury will be issuing a huge amount of new debt. They need to refinance about $1 trillion. Net borrowing will be about $250 billion. In the current situation, Bitcoin's movement could be very volatile and very unstable. Therefore, if you don't have an urgent need to trade, it might make sense to wait a couple of days until next week to see how the situation develops. Because the intraday dynamics show that Bitcoin is experiencing certain problems, especially when moving upward. Although overall, the trading plan we developed last time is working. So if you check out the daily chart, we've got this reversal session here, which is why we mentioned earlier that we might see some movement forming an ABCD pattern on the intraday chart. And right now, that's pretty much what's happening. We had that correction after the engulfing pattern formed, and now the market's trying to push upward. However, this is happening with great difficulty. On the 4-hour chart, you can see the pattern, pretty choppy and uneven movement. Although the market is trying to move forward. Here you can see we even had a reversal bar formed with bullish acceleration, which is in principle not bad. And if overall you open positions on the correction we talked about, it should generally be a good one. I'm looking at a target around 1620, 1625. See that? That's exactly where the 30% Fibonacci resistance is sitting. So this is our nearest target for Bitcoin. However, if you look at how the market is moving overall, there are clearly no bullish signs here. The movement is heavy, slow, with no signs of momentum, so most likely this is still just a correction. The next step could very well be a return to the previous low or even an attempt to break through it, especially if the liquidity situation doesn't normalize in the coming days. Yesterday's auction of 10-year securities showed a rather poor result. There's just not much appetite for long-term treasury bonds right now, and that's making folks nervous. People are seeking liquidity in order to refinance and buy new debt. Therefore, there aren't that many free resources left for Bitcoin, and this is reflected in its dynamics. On the hourly chart, if you still want to try buying, there are correction levels here that you can use. But as I said, the dynamics are very unstable. The market's already hovering near the target, just a hair away from hitting it. Therefore, in the current situation, taking into account all the risk factors that exist, I would rather recommend, especially to conservative traders, I would advise not to participate in this dynamic for now, to wait and see what happens next, whether any more substantial patterns will form or not. If you've already got a position, then maybe you can try to hold on to it until you reach your goal. At the same time, move your stop order to break even. That's pretty much all I can say about Bitcoin right now. Let's keep an eye on things and we'll chat about how the situation changes on Monday.